With the current financial chaos and in a market that is totally confusing with lots of things happening simultaneously that are troublesome enough even when they happen one at a time, you might be forgiven for wanting to wait and let it settle down before, as I say, tackling the really big problems. Now that might work in some cases, but we believe that when a customer is showing signs of going bust, perhaps you need to act a little faster. So this particular idea we felt might be useful to open up and help you see some of the signs and get there a little ahead of some of your competition. Now, first of all, it's useful to look at why money really matters, particularly in the current climate. Now, as you know, retailers are measured by financial performance, and the best indicator we know is return on capital employed, ROCE. Okay? A good performance in terms of return on capital employed drives your share price, in other words, makes you more expensive and gives you freedom to act. Otherwise, you get taken over by someone who can do it better, or you go bust. There's no real alternatives. Growth is driven by financial performance using the ROCE as the key ratio. That then cascades out of that several other ratios, including net profit margin, stock turn, gearing, and space utilization. In fact, we use another 50 ratios to track some of the major players in the market. Retailers tend to see above the line expenditure as unfocused and, if you like, operating in a very fragmented market. In fact, most NAMs and CAMs might agree with them. Okay. They are eager for increasing levels of trade funding, although it is at the moment more than 20% of, if you like, equivalent to 20% of their purchases. In other words, suppliers are spending more than 20% of sales on trade funding. The retailers are resorting to competing on price. It's the easiest maneuver in the current climate, especially. In the process, they're devaluing the brand and the category, and obviously there's a danger of some of the players going bust. Hence, we're looking at this together. So it's obvious that we need to look at what signals a retailer gives off when they're getting close to the edge, in other words, when they're in danger of going bust. And the key measure, as you know, is return on capital employed. If return on capital employed is 10% or less and is actually falling, this is a key indicator of a retailer being in trouble. Okay? If at the same time the net margin is lower than 4% and also falling, then this adds to the problem. We then look at gearing, which, as you know, is the, if you like, ratio that measures to what extent they're borrowing in the, if you like, money markets. Now, it's nothing at all to do with the credit that you normally give. This is seen as interest-free and thereby is not counted as gearing. Gearing measures, if you like, money borrowed for which they have to pay, if you like, price, i.e. interest. So the level there is 30% of the net worth. And anything above this figure, particularly 50% and rising, is another good indicator of trouble. Now, if you wanted some explanation of some of the detail of this, just look at CAM City, the CAM Words section, and particularly the finance part of that. You'll find all you need to know. Basically, if the stock turn is, as I say, below 20 times, and good retailing should be hitting around 20 to 25 times a year. If theirs is 20 and falling, means they're buying too much of the wrong stock and not moving it through properly. Okay, as a result, you're going to get, if you like, out of stocks and poor in-store availability. This in turn affects the staff in terms of causing low morale, if you like, and bad in-store discipline. Another measure, if you like, to add to some of that particular exposure issue is literally what we call creeping credit. In other words, trade credit as a percentage of stocks. If that is rising, then again you need to look closer in terms of, if you like, how they use your money in terms of running their business. You begin to see big suppliers walking, in the sense they sense the trouble and they got the power to say no and walk if the retailer cannot comply. So from that point of view, you just notice who's missing from the shelves. Okay, the retailer then begins to demand cash incentives that sometimes don't even get out of their bank. In other words, you pay the check, it goes into the bank and obviously stays there for obvious reasons. They got, as a result, lower compliance at store level. increasing shrinkage because they're not watching the shop as well. And as I say, when you get to it, and being that you're in there on a regular basis, one way or another, you notice that they're running around like headless chickens, heads down, looking busy, and as I say, showing all the signs of a company not entirely focused on making money. Now, at this stage, you're probably wondering why this is, as I say, a burden for NAMs and CAMs when you have a pretty adequate finance department and other functions are meant to be watching this type of thing. In practice, the NAM and CAM are in daily contact with, if you like, the customer's business. They can be made sensitive to the key signals, whereas other departments have a different focus and are more remote from the interface. The NAM and CAM, in fact, need to correct the damage also via incremental sales. So lots of reasons why this is so important for you in your role. Now, if you need any more convincing, perhaps it's worth looking at what actually happens when a customer actually goes bust. First of all, let's suppose they go bust, one of your big customers owing you £150,000, or dollars or euros. In fact, the way the pound is going at the moment, it'll probably be at parity by the end of next year anyway. Now, let's suppose also that you make 5% net profit on your business with this retailer. You then need incremental sales of £3 million in order to recover that 150k. As you know, if you like, 5% of £3 million is in fact 150k. And the only guys in the business actually going out to get incremental sales are NAMs and CAMs. So hence the importance of all of this for you. Now, when the retailer actually goes bust, then it's useful to look at what happens then in terms of liquidator being appointed, and especially who gets paid first. Well, first of all, if it's not obvious to you, the Inland Revenue pick up on VAT that's owing. Secondly, you've got corporation tax going to another department of the Inland Revenue guys. We then have bank overdraft, usually secured against some of the buildings, etc., and that's paid. The liquidator himself gets a fee, obviously, and then utilities like water and rates, etc., electricity are paid. Finally, the staff, including their pension fund, if possible, or if there's any money left, in fact, are paid. And finally, at the very end of the line are suppliers, and this is how you end up with your 10p in the pound or less. You can see why it's important that you get in there first. Crucial, in fact. Now, at this stage, some of you may be saying, well, it's okay with us. Our, if you like, system operates through wholesalers, so it's not really our problem. In fact, it is very much your problem, even more so, I'd suggest. First of all, when a wholesaler's customer goes bust, let's say their customer owes them £150,000, okay? Let us also assume that the wholesaler makes 1% net profit, which is usual in, if you like, wholesaling. The wholesaler then needs incremental sales of £15 million in order, if you like, to recover a lost profit of £150,000. I personally wouldn't like to be looking for 15 million incremental sales in a wholesaling business in the current climate. So you can see this is an issue. So we have then start getting some of your wholesalers who are bigger units of business going bust on you, then you've got even more problems. So we literally need to be incredibly conscious of signals coming from, as I say, a business in trouble. Finally, it's worth bearing in mind that bankruptcy begins very, very slowly and ends very, very fast. So it's worth keeping an eye on the signals and acting before others do. Namnews can help because we keep you obviously in touch with key and latest financial performance and also the insight to help you, if you like, identify the main signals. If you'd like to go a little deeper with some of this, then go into camcity.com and particularly our financial tools section. You'll find there NamCalc, where we have a toolkit of 34 different ways of measuring your financial relationship with the customer. Secondly, our workshops, we've got two particularly that might be of interest. One is maximizing your financial bargaining power, that's an in-house option. And secondly, how to negotiate effective price increases. I found particularly useful in the current climate. Thank you very much indeed.